In a crowded concert hall, world-renowned pianist Alexander Voss is known for his unmatched precision and arrogance. During a public masterclass, he mocks a quiet woman named Lila Moreno, an audience member who claims she used to play a little. To everyone's surprise, she accepts his challenge to perform before the entire hall. What follows leaves the crowd breathless. Her fingers dance across the keys with emotion that transcends perfection. Beneath the spotlight, two lives collide, one fueled by ego, the other by buried pain. And the master realizes he has just met a true artist. Vienna. Winter. The city glows under street lamps that stretch across cobblestone streets. Inside a grand hall, people settle into velvet seats, their murmurs blending with the faint rustle of programs. Tonight is not just another concert. It's a masterclass, a glimpse into the mind of one of the world's finest pianists, and perhaps one of its harshest critics. Audience clapping lightly. A tall man walks to the piano, Alexander Voss. Host, Marcus. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the maestro himself, Alexander Voss. Applause. Alexander nods slightly, confident but detached. Alexander. Thank you. Music, my friends, is not a feeling. It's precision, discipline. Each note must obey logic before emotion. Remember that. He sits, adjusts his cufflinks, and begins to play. The melody is perfect, mechanical, like a flawless machine. Every note lands exactly where it should. The audience is mesmerized, yet there's a strange hollowness in the perfection. He stops abruptly. Alexander. Now, who among you believes they can feel music better than they can read it? Uneasy laughter fills the hall. A few students raise their hands nervously. Alexander. Good. You, young man, come here. Let's see what your feelings can do. A student walks on stage, trembling. He plays a simple sonata passage. A few mistakes echo. Alexander. Stop. No, you rush. You let emotion lead before mastery. Start again, and this time, think before you feel. He corrects every finger position, every pedal press. The student leaves red-faced. The crowd claps out of politeness. Alexander, dryly, applause does not make art. Understanding does. Marcus, host, trying to lighten the air. Well, perhaps we'll have more volunteers? Anyone here who'd like to play for the maestro? Silence. Then a soft voice from the back. Lila, quietly. I can try. Heads turn. A woman stands mid-30s, gentle face, hair tied neatly. Not a performer's aura, but something calm, humble. Alexander, raising an eyebrow. You can try? That's a brave word to use here. Do you play? Lila. I used to, a long time ago. Marcus. Come on up. She walks toward the stage. Her shoes click softly against the wooden floor. The audience watches, with a mix of curiosity and doubt. She isn't dressed for the stage. No gown, no glamour, just simplicity. Yet something about her posture carries quiet strength. Alexander, gesturing to the piano. The floor is yours, miss. Lila Moreno. Alexander. Miss Moreno. Let's see what time remembers. Perhaps a piece of your choice? Lila, smiling nervously. May I play Clair de Lune? Alexander, nodding. A safe choice. Debussy. Every student's comfort zone. Proceed. Lila sits. Her hands hover above the keys. Silence fills the hall. Then she begins softly, unsure. A few uneven notes. The first notes tremble, like a forgotten memory being dusted off. A couple of mistakes, a few hesitations. People shift in their seats. Alexander, interrupting. Stop. You play like you're afraid of it. Why hesitate? The piano doesn't bite. Lila softly, I'm not afraid, just remembering. Alexander, well, memories don't win applause. Try again, and this time make it worth listening to. Lila nods, starts again. The melody flows smoother now. Her touch is gentler. The hall quiets. Something subtle happens. Her sound is fragile, but sincere. It doesn't strive for perfection. It breathes. Alexander watches, intrigued but unimpressed. Alexander, better, but sentiment doesn't equal skill. You let your heart lead your hands, a mistake many make. Lila, turning to him calmly, is that really a mistake? Alexander, coldly, when art becomes indulgence, yes. The world doesn't pay for your feelings. They pay for excellence. Lila, smiling faintly, I suppose I play for something different then. A murmur stirs in the audience. Something in her tone disarms the arrogance in his. She's not challenging him, but she isn't yielding either. Marcus, lightly, perhaps a little friendly duel, Maestro Voss versus Miss Moreno. What do you say, audience? The hall erupts in applause. Alexander smirks. Alexander, very well. A small game then. You play, I correct. We'll see what's left when we strip away feeling. Lila, all right, but if I win, you'll have to admit that emotion is part of mastery. Alexander, and if you lose? Lila, then I'll never touch a piano again. The crowd gasps. Alexander's eyes narrow. He nods. Alexander, deal, play, the challenge is set. One stage, two worlds. Logic versus heart. Precision against the soul. Lila takes a deep breath. Her fingers return to the keys. Alexander folds his arms, ready to dissect every note. And yet, beneath her calm, something deeper stirs. Not fear, not pride, something that has waited years to be heard again. The stage feels heavier now, not because of fear, but because the room senses something unusual. The woman who said she used to play is about to face a man who believes no one can match his perfection. Lila exhales quietly. Her fingers descend onto the keys. Lila, all right. Let's see what your rules sound like when they meet my heart. She starts playing the melody from Debussy's Clair de Lune, this time more confident, more fluid. Each note lands with quiet strength. The crowd leans forward. Her tone isn't flawless, yet there's a human warmth that pulls the air tighter around the audience. It's the sound of someone who has lived, lost, and remembered what matters. Alexander, interrupting sharply, stop. The audience murmurs in surprise. You linger on the third measure. The sustained pedal bleeds too long. You're drowning the phrasing. Again, from the top. Lila, gently, or maybe the pause was meant to breathe. Sometimes silence is part of the music too. Alexander, curtly, silence belongs to timing, not emotion. Technique defines breathing, not sentimentality. Again. Lila, all right, maestro, you lead. She moves aside. Alexander takes her place. He begins to play the same passage sharp, clean, absolute perfection. The notes are crystal, mathematical, sterile. His fingers move like trained soldiers, disciplined, obedient, flawless. The crowd applauds. Yet something feels missing. It's beautiful, but distant. Lila, softly, as applause fades. It's perfect, but I didn't feel it. Alexander, smiling thinly. Feeling is for listeners. Discipline is for players. The crowd felt because I executed. That's the difference between artists and dreamers. Lila, looking down at the piano. Maybe dreamers remind artists why they started playing in the first place? A hush falls. A few audience members exchange glances. Alexander straightens, clearly irritated but intrigued. You speak as though you understand the journey. But music demands sacrifice, sleepless nights, bleeding fingers, the death of softness. You think emotion can replace that? Lila, no. But maybe emotion is what keeps it alive after all the sacrifice. The room holds its breath. It's not defiance that carries her words, but honesty, quiet, stubborn honesty. Alexander, after a pause. Fine. You want to prove your point? Play something of mine. Let's see how much your emotion helps when faced with true complexity. Marcus, host, whispering nervously. Alexander, perhaps that's Alexander, cutting in. No, Marcus. Let her play Rhapsody in Grey. Page 32. Gasps ripple through the audience. It's his most difficult composition, notoriously technical and layered. Lila, that's your masterpiece, isn't it? Alexander, my signature work. No one has ever played it publicly without collapsing halfway through. If you can play it, perhaps then we'll talk about feeling. Lila, nodding. All right, give me the sheet. Alexander, you'll need it. Lila, placing it aside. No, thank you, I'll listen. The crowd murmurs louder now. Alexander narrows his eyes. Alexander, you've heard it before? Lila, quietly. A few times. A long time ago. Narrator. Alexander folds his arms. The air tightens. She begins to play without looking at the sheet. The first notes emerge soft, uncertain, then grow into something vivid, flowing. Her hands glide across the keys, and soon the melody blooms deep, emotional, entirely her own interpretation of his work. It's his music, yet not. She takes his rigid architecture and breathes life into it. The rhythm swells and bends like water against stone. The audience falls silent. Some lean forward, lips parted. Alexander, interrupting mid-play, slightly shaken. Stop! That's not the tempo. You're changing the phrasing. Lila, not stopping. I'm playing what the music asks, not what the page dictates. She continues, her eyes closed. Alexander takes a step back. Narrator. Every phrase she touches seems to rewrite what perfection sounds like. For the first time in years, Alexander feels unsure, as though he's hearing his own creation for the first time. Lila finishes. The last note hangs in the air, silence. The audience is frozen. Marcus whispering. Incredible. Applause erupts, hesitant at first, then thunderous. Alexander, trying to compose himself. Interesting interpretation, but still self-indulgent. You distorted my time signatures. You colored notes that were meant to stay cold. Lila, meeting his eyes. Maybe they were never meant to stay cold. Maybe they were just waiting to be felt. Alexander. You think you know my music better than I do? Lila, softly. Not better, just differently. Narrator. The audience murmurs again. There's no arrogance in her tone, just quiet truth. Alexander turns away, pretending indifference, but his hands tremble slightly. Marcus. That was unexpected, wasn't it, maestro? Alexander, forcing a smile. Emotion without discipline is chaos. She played with feeling, yes, but accuracy, non-existent. Lila. Then why did they cry? The question lands like a soft hammer. The audience looks around. Several people are visibly moved. Alexander, hesitant. They're reacting to novelty, not authenticity. Lila, calmly. Or maybe they're reacting to something you've forgotten. Her words slice deeper than she knows. Alexander's mentor, the one who taught him everything, used to say the same thing. Don't just play to impress, play to remember. A flicker of memory crosses Alexander's face. He shakes it off. Alexander, defensively. This isn't about memory. It's about mastery. Anyone can feel it. Not everyone can command. Lila. And what good is command if it silences the soul? Narrator. The hall is utterly still. The maestro, who never loses a debate, has no ready answer. He finally exhales and nods once, almost amused. Alexander. You argue like a philosopher. Fine. I'll give you one last chance to prove yourself. Play something of your own, choosing anything. But if you fail to impress, the deal stands. Lila. And if I succeed? Alexander. Then I'll admit that perhaps perfection isn't everything. Lila. Fair enough. She places her fingers back on the piano. A hush. She begins a piece the audience doesn't recognize as slow, emotional, haunting. No one knows the melody. It's not written anywhere. It feels personal, like a diary entry turned into music. Her notes are soft confessions. Her pauses are sighs. Alexander listens intently. His frown fades. Something about the melody feels familiar, painfully so. Alexander, under his breath. That theme. Where have I? Lila, finishing the last notes. It was the first composition I ever learned from Professor Weiss. Alexander freezes. His mentor's name echoes in his head. The air changes again. Recognition flashes in his eyes of shock, confusion, something deeper. Alexander, slowly. Harlan Weiss? He taught you? Lila, yes. Many years ago, before you became his star student. The audience stirs, sensing a revelation coming. Alexander. You studied under him? How did I never, Lila? Quietly. I left before you arrived. Life got in the way. Her voice cracks just slightly. Behind that calm exterior lies a story of loss, of years buried under quiet resignation. Alexander, whispering, shaken. That melody, it was his unfinished sketch. He said he abandoned it. Lila. He didn't abandon it. He wrote it with me. The audience gasps. Alexander stares at her in disbelief. And for the first time tonight, the maestro has no words. Lila, standing slowly. Your rhapsody in grey, the foundation. The chord progression, it came from that sketch. I recognized it the first time I heard you play it. Alexander, stunned. That's impossible. He gave me that theme as an assignment. Lila. Because he wanted you to finish what he couldn't. What we started. Silence. Alexander looks down, shaken. The weight of realization hitting him. Narrator. The proud pianist stands still. The woman he mocked is not an amateur, not a random stranger. She's the ghost of the music's origin, the missing emotion, his perfection, never understood. Lila, softly. I wasn't here to compete with you. I just wanted to remember what it felt like to play again. Alexander looks up, guilt flickering in his eyes. Alexander, quietly. And you did. Lila, smiling faintly. I did. The hall remains in silence, as if even the walls are listening. The arrogance that filled the night begins to crumble, note by note, leaving only humility and awe. Alexander, finally, voice low. You're saying that sketch, the one Weiss gave me, was yours? Lila, softly. Ours. We worked on it together. I was his student before you were. He said it was meant to be a study in emotion, not perfection. Alexander, barely audible. He never told me that. Lila. He wouldn't. He wanted you to find your own meaning in it. Alexander's fingers twitch, as if trying to grasp the invisible threads of memory. The perfectionist who built a career on precision now faces the truth that his masterpiece was born from someone else's heart. Alexander, quietly, almost to himself. All these years, I thought that melody came from his imagination. I used it as the spine for my first symphony. He stops. The words catch in his throat. Lila, calmly, you gave it power. You made it known. He'd be proud of you for that. Alexander, looking at her, conflicted. Proud? Of what? Of stealing someone else's soul and polishing it into stone? Lila, you didn't steal it. You preserved it. Maybe that's what both of us did. Your structure, my emotion, his teaching between us. The crowd watches, caught between admiration and disbelief. What began as a competition is turning into confession. Alexander, hesitant. Why didn't you say anything before? When my name started rising, when the piece became famous, why stay silent? Lila, pausing. Because fame was never the reason I played. He studies her face. There's no resentment there, only quiet acceptance. Alexander, you disappeared. Weiss never mentioned why. Lila, he didn't know. My husband was in an accident. My son, too. Both gone. The same night. After that, I couldn't play. Not a single note. For years. The audience gasps softly. Alexander's expression changes completely. Alexander, gently. I'm sorry. Lila, looking down. Grief takes music from you. It's like your heart forgets the language. For a while, I thought it would be kinder to forget entirely. But when I heard Rhapsody in Grey on the radio one night, I recognized that theme we once built with Weiss. And I realized you'd carried it farther than I ever could. Narrator. Her voice trembles just slightly. The hall remains so still. Even breath sounds loud. Alexander, softly. You played tonight because of that? Lila. Because I wanted to remember. I wanted to feel again, not for glory, not to prove anything, just to see if my hands still knew how to speak to the piano. Alexander. And I turned it into a contest. Lila, smiling faintly. You did what you know best. Competing is how you listen. The audience chuckles softly, easing the tension for a brief second. Alexander's eyes glisten. It's not laughing now, but regretting a rare and raw thing for him. Alexander, quietly. When I played Weiss's compositions, he used to tell me, you have precision, but not soul. I thought he meant I wasn't good enough. I spent years proving him wrong. But maybe he was telling me exactly what I lost. Lila, he told me once, Lila feels the notes before she finds them. I used to think it was a compliment. Now I know it was a warning. Feeling too deeply hurts. Two artists stand at the same piano, facing each other not as rivals, but as broken reflections of what the other lost. His emotion buried in pride, her skill buried in grief. Alexander, you played Rhapsody in Grey better than I ever have. Lila, shaking her head. No, I just played it differently. You built a masterpiece. I only returned its heartbeat. The audience bursts into gentle applause again. Alexander looks down, overwhelmed, then raises his hand to silence them. Alexander, to audience. Please, not applause, just listen. For a moment, the crowd quiets. Alexander turns to Lila. Alexander, will you two play it with me, together? The way Weiss might have imagined it, your heart, my precision. Lila, smiling. I thought you didn't believe in emotion. Alexander, smiling faintly back. Maybe I just needed someone to remind me what it sounds like. She nods. They sit side by side. The hall lights dim slightly. Alexander places his hands on the higher register, Lila on the lower. Narrator. The first notes rise like dawn breaking. Two pianists, two worlds, one built on control, the other on release, finding harmony at last. They play together. The melody breathes differently now. His sharpness softens. Her tenderness steadies. It's no longer one person's song, but a conversation between opposites. Narrator. Every sound feels like reconciliation. Each chord is a bridge between arrogance and humility, pain and healing. The music swells. Alexander closes his eyes mid-performance, visibly moved. Lila's tears glisten under the stage light. Alexander, whispering mid-play, This is what Weiss wanted, isn't it? Lila whispering back, yes, to make the music breathe again. The piece ends not with a flourish, but with stillness. The last note fades like a sigh. For a heartbeat, no one claps. Then, as if awakened, the audience erupts into thunderous applause. Marcus, host, emotional. Ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed something unforgettable. Lila stands, modest and overwhelmed. Alexander stays seated, looking down at the keys. When he finally rises, he turns to her and bows deeply, not for the crowd, but for her. Alexander, softly, thank you for reminding me what music is. Lila, equally soft, thank you for letting it be heard again. The bow lasts longer than any applause. In that single gesture, the maestro surrenders his pride and gains something greater understanding. The audience rises for a standing ovation. Some wipe their eyes. Lila steps back, letting Alexander take the spotlight. But he turns and gestures toward her instead. Alexander to the audience. Tonight, the true master of emotion stood not at this piano, but within it. Remember her name, Lila Moreno. Applause grows louder. Lila's eyes fill with tears. She shakes her head, embarrassed but grateful. Lila, under her breath, you didn't have to, Alexander. Yes, I did. The hall roars with appreciation. Somewhere, in the back of the crowd, a portrait of Professor Weiss hangs on the wall, his faint smile watching over his two students at last in harmony. Months have passed since the night of the challenge. The echoes of applause have faded, but something else remains, a quiet peace neither fame nor pride could ever give. Soft footsteps. Alexander enters from the side door, holding a small bouquet of white lilies. Lila, without turning, you walk quieter than you play. Alexander, smiling. Years of practicing silence after mistakes. She turns. They share a warm, unspoken smile. Lila, you didn't have to come all the way to Brighton just to see an old student rehearse. Alexander, I didn't come for that. I came to apologize properly this time. Lila, gently, you already did. On stage. Alexander, no, that was guilt. This is gratitude. He places the lilies on the piano, her son's favorite flowers. She looks at them, then at him, her expression softening. Lila, quietly, you remembered. Alexander, you told me once when you played for your boy, he'd ask for the white ones. I never forgot that. A moment of silence fills the room, respectful, kind. Lila, so what now, maestro? Going back to your tours, your critics, your perfect stages? Alexander, smiling faintly. Not quite. I cancelled them. All of them. Lila, surprised. All? Alexander, yes. I've decided to teach again. There's a music school for blind children in Prague. They don't need a performer. They need a listener. Lila, teary-eyed. Weiss would be proud of that. Alexander, he'd probably say it took me too long to learn humility. Lila, soft laugh. He'd still smile. They both laugh, softly. The air feels lighter now, the way it does when pain finally becomes memory. Alexander. And you? Still refusing interviews? The world's still talking about you. Lila. Let them talk. I don't need the noise anymore. I've started giving lessons again. Just a few local kids. They remind me what joy sounds like. Alexander. You always were better at joy than me. Lila, playfully. And you were better at pride. I suppose that makes us even. They share a laugh. Lila gently begins to play a soft melody, slow, emotional, tender. Alexander watches in silence. Narrator. Her fingers glide across the keys with ease. No competition, no audience, just two people, finally free from what once bound them. Alexander, after a pause. Is that new, Lila? Not new, just unfinished. I started writing it years ago, but never found the right way to end it. Alexander, may I? Lila, smiling. Go ahead. He sits beside her again, just as they did that night. Together, they play. She begins the melody, he completes the harmony. Their notes weave together like a quiet conversation. Narrator. Two souls, one tempered by loss, the other softened by guilt, rediscovering meaning in every note. Alexander, softly. It's beautiful. What do you call it? Lila, thinking. The second beginning. Alexander, fitting. They finish playing. Silence follows, the kind that feels complete. Narrator. For the first time, both of them feel no urge to fill the silence. The music has already said everything words cannot. A student's voice calls faintly from the hall. Student, off-screen. Miss Lila, are you coming? The kids are waiting. Lila, calling back. Tell them I'll be there in a minute. She stands, smiling warmly. Lila, to Alexander. They're learning Rhapsody in Grey next week. I want them to feel it, not just play it. Alexander, nodding. Then they're learning it the right way. He picks up his coat, preparing to leave. Alexander, before I go, may I ask something? Lila, of course. Alexander, if Weiss were here, do you think he'd forgive me? Lila, gently, he'd never needed to. He saw potential, not perfection. You honored that, even if it took years to understand how. Her words land softly. He nods, his eyes glistening with gratitude. Alexander, quietly. You know, for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid to be ordinary. Lila, smiling. Then you've finally become extraordinary. They share one last look at a mutual recognition that some music isn't meant for the world, only for those who listen closely enough. And just like that, the maestro and the woman part ways, not as rivals, not as master and student, but as equals, bound by the same truth. Music, like life, is not about perfection. It's about honesty. Alexander, gently. Don't worry about the right notes. Feel what comes next. Let it breathe. One of the children plays a soft phrase from Rhapsody in Grey. Alexander smiles proudly. He no longer performs for applause, but for understanding. Lila, to students. See, when you play from your heart, even mistakes can sound beautiful. Student, smiling. Like magic? Lila, exactly like magic. Across cities and hearts, two melodies echo, one of pride turned peace, the other of grief turned grace. They no longer share a stage, but they share something greater. The same song, finally finished. In the end, the greatest symphony isn't written by one hand or another, but by the moment two souls finally learn to listen. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to pause and think about what music really means to you. It isn't about fame or perfection, it's about connection, emotion, and truth. Share this video with someone who believes talent can only be measured by applause. Let them see how humility and passion can create something far more powerful. Subscribe for more cinematic stories that remind us of the beauty in imperfection, the strength in vulnerability, and the art hidden in every ordinary soul. Let's keep the music of humanity alive, one story at a time.